Hello, Mark Curry here. There are lots of words that I could use to describe our current health situation or our health crisis. Weird, surreal, strange, unbelievable. But as far as our industry is concerned, the business that we call show business, the word is uncertain. None of us, performers, people who are working in the theatre backstage, front of house, people who are working in television, technicians, none of us know when we will be working again. And those of us who don't know when we're working again, but who are lucky enough to have some financial security, can get through this period. But there are lots of people who are not quite so fortunate. And right now is a very difficult time for them. So I wanted to do my bit. And I'm putting together a series of conversations called Conversations with Mark Curry, with some famous faces, some of them mates, some people that you'll know, I'm sure. Just chatting to them about their lives, their careers, what they're doing now, their plans on hold because of this situation. And it would be great if you could enjoy those interviews and those conversations. But what would be really wonderful would be if at the end of watching those conversations, you could hit the donate button and just give whatever you can, which would really help performers, workers in theatre and television who are going through this very, very difficult time. So it's really easy. Sit back, enjoy it. And then when you finish watching, just go to the Acting for Others website, hit the donate button, and you'll be taken immediately to the Just Giving page. It's really simple. Just give as little or as much as you can. Thanks so much for watching. My first conversation today is with someone who was a former ballet dancer. She, in fact, was artistic director of her own ballet company once upon a time. She was wife and assistant to the late, great magician Paul Daniels. She was Strictly Come Dancing finalist in 2017. She actually won the Christmas special last year. She's a regular on ITV's Loose Women. She presents her own radio show on BBC Radio Berkshire. She is the one and only Debbie McGee. Hello.
Hello, Mark. Well, what an introduction. I've forgotten half of those.
I was waiting for the applause, but nothing came. It's just being there.
Oh, yes, it was a bit flat, wasn't it, you know?
So there you are in lockdown in beautiful Berkshire. I've been to your place. It's absolutely gorgeous. Have you been totally on your own during this time?
Well, I have, but I live in a great community and, you know, you've been here, you know, my neighbours and that are all pretty close. So I have been having my daily walks, most of them at a social distance, but with a friend, you know, walking up the river, going over the fields and whatever, but staying apart. But no, I thought I'd go really crazy being on my own. But actually, you know, I've got my 3 rabbits keeping me company in the lounge, as you well know. And, I've been really busy and some days really lazy and just kind of thinking, well, this is life and we're not going to live these days again and I want to stay safe. So, just catching up with loads and then having a day, you know, where yesterday I went and got a takeaway roast dinner and, you know, watched movies. I mean, weather was awful. So
it's funny actually, because quite a few really busy people have said to me, do you know what, I'm actually quite enjoying it because obviously they've been healthy and they're usually used to running around and stuff. It's going to be a bit strange, isn't it, when we can actually get on the train and we can go and do that work. It's going to be a bit odd.
I think what it does as well, which, you know, we're both incredibly busy people all the time and, you know, get up with a purpose every day. And at the very beginning of it, I was right, I'm going to get this done, that done, you know, and I had my lists and blah, blah, blah. But as the weeks have gone on, those lists get put on to the next day because I've done tons. But I realised what it is, you haven't got a deadline anymore. There's no, you know, and at the moment we still can't see an end to it. You know, there's a bit relaxed, but really we are still stuck in lockdown. And so there isn't any urgency, is there? I haven't got to be at the theatre to rehearse at 10 o'clock. And so I must do my yoga by 7:30 in the morning. There's no urgency. And for a little while, I was still on that treadmill and getting up early and doing my exercise and thinking, right, what am I doing next? But actually now, I've got used to this calmer life and it's lovely.
Shouldn't you have actually been on stage at this time? Weren't you doing your first serious acting role? It would have been now, wouldn't it, at the Mill at Sonny?
Absolutely. I would have opened on the 23rd of April, you know, so yeah, I'll be getting ready to probably go to the theatre and warm up now. Yeah, I know, it was really peculiar because, you know, for the first time, well, not the first time, but, you know, we know in show business, you're in a job and then you quite often have no idea what's going to happen after that job finishes. But my whole life, work-wise, was completely planned out until the end of May 2021. And then suddenly, that one night, you know, overnight, everything went. Everything. And, you know, I've got Panto booked in Southampton with Craig Revel-Horde. That's it at the moment, is sitting there, but they haven't made a decision yet. You know, so you don't know when you're going to be working, and that's quite scary, really. But
was one of the first things I thought about when I heard that the show was going to be cancelled. Because I only lost a week of a tour that I was in, but I'd written down, because I was going to come to your first night at the Mill at Sonny, and I was so excited for you because I know it's your first part on stage, and I was there for you, and I was really upset, and I didn't want to ring you and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," because I thought, "Oh, she's probably trying to get over it." But it's just such a shame. Everybody's gone through this, but
I know. Well, because as you know, we chatted about it because you'd worked there as well, the Mill at Sonny. You know, I was so excited about the role because I love the play because I've seen it on tour, and you know, it's a wacky psychic I was going to play, and I was just really excited about the whole challenge and working there, which isn't that far from my home, you know, and all of that, and yeah, and then it was kind of just wiped off the board. But I mean, hopefully it will come back and we'll be able to do the play at a later date. But of course, like everybody, it's a waiting game. You know, we don't know when theatres will be able to open.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back. You were born in Kingston, not in Jamaica, in the UK.
Yeah, Kingston upon Thames in Surrey.
One of three.
Yeah. Eldest.
And is it true that your parents ran a corner shop?
They did. Yeah. Yeah, like you know, like a grocer's store. Like it was like open all hours. One of those. Except my mum and dad were really good looking, and all the men fancied mum, and all the women fancied dad. So they did a rip-roaring trade.
Do you know, I always wanted to have a shop when I was a kid, because I was always being sent to the shop because I was the youngest.
Yeah.
I was always being told to go to the shop, especially when it closed on a Sunday. My mum would say, "Will you go around and knock on the back door and get a pint of milk?" I used to hate it. And I used to think, if we had a corner shop, you could just go downstairs and get whatever you wanted.
Well, actually, that's true. And we had you know, the years that we were there, when I became a teenager, and I was old enough to be left to babysit for my other two siblings, my mum and dad would have the odd night out, and our treat was that we could go and choose anything from the shop that we wanted for our dinner, which I was, you know, going to cook. And I always chose the same thing, Mark. And when I look back on it now, I think, oh my God, it was Vesta beef curry, which was vacuum packed. It must have been disgusting. And I loved it. You know,
it was exotic then, very exotic.
Yeah, and every time they went out, that's what I would have, you know, because my mum always cooked proper meals and everything. And this was like, oh, you know, something, exotic, you know, a curry. We didn't have any Indian restaurants in those days. Yes, because I've always liked spicy food.
Were you already crazy about dancing even when you were a kid? When did that start, and where did that come from, do you think?
Right. I was always crazy about show business. Anything on television that had people singing or dancing, in the musicals particularly. And I used to watch a lot of the old movies with my mum. And, you know, and I can remember the first big musical she took me to at the cinema, which was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. You know, and I came home, I wanted to be one of those actresses. I really didn't care where in show business I slotted in. I just loved the glamour. It was all about the glamour. I wanted to dress up like those women, and for most of my life I did. You know, even when I was 16, I'd save up and buy a really expensive outfit rather than buy 10 cheaper ones. And you know, and at home I was never a tracksuit girl. I had, you know, nice beautiful dressing gowns and things because I just wanted to be like them. You know, so it was all about that. And then when I was about 5, I was really, Mum noticed that I copied everything to do with dancing on telly. So she sent me to a little dancing school, and I became the best at that dancing school, but it wasn't a particularly good one. So I'd been doing competitions for years and doing well, but my dad, who was Irish and very wise, used to come and watch. And then when I was 11, he said to me, if you're going to take this up seriously, you need to go to a better dancing school. So over these years, I've been watching at the competitions, which is the best school, who wins all the medals. And then at 11, I went to that school and I became the worst girl, you know, at a much better school. So I had to really work hard to catch up with people that had been there since they were 3 or 4.
But you obviously became really good because it was 16, you actually went to London and you auditioned for...
Yes, the Royal Ballet School. Yeah. Well, the thing was, I think lots of us, and I know you would like it too, nothing else existed in my life except learning to dance and, you know, being at dancing school and singing. I went 3 nights a week, did my homework while I was waiting for the class to start. Sometimes I did 2 classes. I was there all day Saturday. And if we were doing shows or competitions, we often went all day Sunday as well. Well, I didn't care. I would have gone every day of the week. So then when I was 16, the teachers at my school said, because of my physique, I should audition for the Royal Ballet School. But my dad, being the wise person that he was, said, if you audition for the dancers course, the chances are that you will be, you know, you'll go into show business or go into a ballet company. That career won't last forever because it's so physical. You'll have nothing to fall back on, and you know, and you're going to go there with only a few O levels. So they had a specialised teaching course at that time that Ninette de Valois had started. And so I went and auditioned for the teacher's course, but of course my body and my dancing standard was of the dancers course, and we had all the same teachers. And then we started with, I think it was 30 in the first year. And I mean, it was tough. You got weighed on the first day of term, every term. Now, I was lucky. I've always been able to eat loads and not put too much weight on. I mean, it's getting harder now, I'm older, but in those days, I could just eat everything in sight. You know, I suppose I was dancing so much. But for the girls that struggled, it was a horrible thing. And then at the end of every term, you were assessed. And at the end of the year, if you weren't up, even though it was a teaching course, if you weren't up to the school's dancing standard, you were out. So by the time it got to my 3rd graduation year, there were only 2 of us left. Another girl called Louisa McAlpine, and both her parents had been in the Royal Ballet Company, you know, so they trained with all our teachers. But Louisa was a fantastic dancer.
And Debbie, would that ever happen now, that kind of pressure? Would that happen today?
Yeah, it still is. If you want to get into the Royal Ballet School, you know, the audition you go through, I think I went to 4, and then after the final audition, it's still not guaranteed you'll get in. We went and had our bodies scanned or x-rayed so that they look to see that all your bones are in the right place and things, and they know how tall you're going to grow by a gap in your wrist or something. And a friend of mine, this beautiful dancer, she auditioned at the same time as me, and she didn't get in because her left hip was 1/8 of an inch higher than her right hip.
Amazing.
And that's because with their training, and they're training your muscles and everything else, if you've got a bone that's slightly out of place or at a different level, that's going to affect your weight and the muscles and all of that. I mean, it's still like that. And I can remember they said to me, I had one shoulder muscle just a bit bigger than the other, and they said, is that where you carry your school satchel? And I said, yes. They said, oh, well, 2 months, we'll get rid of that. And they did, yeah.
Unbelievable. How did you end up then at the Iranian National Ballet? What happened there?
Well, in my final year at the Royal Ballet School, by then I was doing all the dancers classes because there was only Louisa and I. It wasn't worth them having a teacher teaching us. So we could join any of the dancers classes, and their final year students were all, which is what people do now, auditioning all around Europe for companies to go to if you hadn't got into the Royal Ballet Company, because they only, and even now, only take about 3 a year if you're lucky, you know. And so I went off and auditioned with all the dancers course all over Europe. I think I was away for about a month, and you do like classes with a company, and then they, you know, call you back and whatever, and then you go on to the next place. I went all around Belgium, Germany, Holland, and everything, and then I got down to the final 2 for about 3 companies, and this was in about May. And then I came back to London, but they hadn't decided out of the 2 people who they were going to take. And then I heard of an audition for the Iranian National Ballet in London. So I went to that, and they were paying 5 times more than the Royal Ballet were paying. And I've always had a bit of a business head. And I got offered the job immediately. So I had this plan that I would go to Iran and stay for 3 years and save. How old were you? 19.
19.
So I'd planned that I'd stay there for a few years, save all my money like crazy, and then come back and buy some properties, so that if I went into show business in another vein, or when I was older and I couldn't dance, you know, I had an income. But after 7 months was when the Ayatollah came back and the revolution happened. And so I went through what the movie, if anyone's seen the movie Argo with Ben Affleck, if you watch that, that's exactly what I went through. You know, our company closed down, all the administrators and high up people left the country and went off to America and things. And we, you know, the kind of European contingent of the company, which was about, I think it was about 30 of us, we all got hidden in an apartment block, and the boys used to go out at 7 in the morning to get whatever food, you know, they could get, which is usually the Iranian flat breads, which they cook in like clay ovens, but on the street, and you queue up twice a day for it. So they'd go and get as much as that as they could buy, and then anything else in the shops. But sometimes they get caught up in a riot, and the shopkeepers would hide them in the back of the shop and things like that. You know, it was actually really quite dangerous. But because I'd saved a lot of money, and so had 2 friends of mine, I knew somebody in the Foreign Residence Bureau who I telephoned, who was still in Tehran, and they knew somebody in the airlines. So we were able to pay, you know, well over the odds for our tickets. It took up nearly all my savings, and got a flight to Zurich. And that was the day they were closing the airport. So if we hadn't got out then, the others that were left were eventually evacuated out 6 months after us, but they'd gone through a lot more than we did, you know.
When you were there for those years, were you well looked after?
Yes. Yeah, the company had so much money. We had choreographers for Alvin Ailey from New York, you know, famous Russian choreographers and trainers and tutors. You know, it was amazing. And the productions, you know, all the sets and costumes came from around the world. They were absolute top quality. And I became a soloist within 6 weeks of being in the company, and had quite a hard time, because there were girls that had been in the company for 4 years who expected to get the roles that I was getting. So they were really cruel to me. But looking back on it, it made me much tougher in what I've had to deal with since. You know, our business isn't always easy. And, but yeah, they did put glass in my butt point shoes.
Oh.
Hoping I wouldn't, you know, look in. So I cut my feet so I couldn't go on. Yeah, I mean, all sorts of things. Honestly, I can't tell you. And wouldn't talk to me, and, you know, all of that. Sorry about that ding, everybody. That was my phone.
It's a job offer. Another job offer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Actually.
What? Yeah. When you came back.
Well, I know it's jumping about a bit, Go on. No, you carry on. I know we know each other too well. I'm having a conversation, so you carry on with the interview, darling.
Just so, when you came back to the UK, you were a ballet dancer. So what were your thoughts? What did you first think that you should do? Because you ended up auditioning for Bernard Delfox, who of course was Mr. Showbiz at that time. But was that your first decision, or did you try and do more ballet when you were back in the UK?
No, I tried to do more ballet. So I applied to all the ballet companies, Scottish Ballet, Northern, but they were all full at that time. So, weren't taking anybody. So that's when, like dancers still do, I looked in the Stage newspaper, which is our show business newspaper, and there was this audition for the Bernard Delfox organisation for all the summer shows. And, that was 79. So I don't know how many they had around the country then, but it was a lot. And, I went to Yarmouth, and there were 5 shows on in Yarmouth. One of them was a play, but, there were two different piers. There was, a cinema that became a theatre, So I went to this enormous audition with about 1,000 girls. It went on all day, and you got weeded down and asked to come back 4 hours later and all of that nonsense. And then we went back in, and I think there must have been about 100 of us left. And then at the end of it, it was like, you 10 are with Russ Abbott, you're with Des O'Connor, you're with Little and Large, and I was put with Paul Daniels. Well, I had no idea who Paul was, because he'd become famous while I was living in Iran. And I didn't even know what he did. I mean, I didn't know anything about this. Who the hell is this Paul Daniels guy? So, I went home and said to my mum and dad, rang my friends. They all said, he's a magician. I went, oh God, I hate magic. I've just signed a contract for 4.5 months with a magician. Oh my goodness, how am I going to survive this? Anyway, there was about a 6-week period before I started rehearsals, and I was at a friend's house, and her children were watching Blankety Blank, which was a quiz show back then, with Terry Wogan hosting it. And Paul was playing a joke on Terry, and he was a panellist, and he had stood up on his chair, pulled his jacket off, and he had a Superman T-shirt underneath, but then you could see, and he had red underpants over his trousers, and whatever the line was, that was Paul's joke, So I thought, oh, well, he's actually very funny. It was a bit stupid, but it made me laugh, and I thought, oh, maybe it won't be so bad. And then we were both people who were early. So we were rehearsing at the old Una Billings studio in Shepherd's Bush. It was a converted church. And so I'd been rehearsing about 3 or 4 days with the choreographer, Fred Peters, who's no longer around. He was an amazing choreographer. And I was early, and I was on the 4th day, I think it was, sitting on the wall outside because it wasn't even open. And the next thing, this little funny chap walked up with his box of tricks and started having a bit of banter with me, And we made each other laugh. And he said, he told me afterwards, it was, because I fired back at him, he kind of did some banter and jokes, but I had a reply every time. And he actually thought, this young girl's got a little bit of personality, a bit of fire in there. But I was 20 years younger than him. Yeah. So he just thought I was far too young. So we were working together. We always got on and had this incredible chemistry. But it was quite a lot later when, he actually decided, well, she's older now, and perhaps the press won't be so unkind.
So he kept you there in his brain. And it definitely, so it wasn't really love at first sight, but there's just something about him. It was that charisma, that humour, which is always so attractive, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't know, was it love at first sight? There was definitely some sort of amazing connection and electricity. So maybe that would be love. But it also was working with him in that first summer season. I've always been attracted to talented people. It doesn't matter what your talent is. I find that's something I just find wonderful when people have got a talent. So his humour and his talent really attracted me. But, I kept trying, but he kept pushing me away. I kept saying, no, you're far too young.
So then, how did you become his assistant? Presumably, you had to learn about the magic. What happened there?
Well, on that show in Great Yarmouth, he watched that first day when he came to rehearsals and chose 4 of us to help with tricks throughout the show. But they were only things that you had to carry on and carry off. It wasn't being involved particularly in an illusion or anything. And then from that show, I got his following year's summer season in Bournemouth. And then he chose 4 of us, and we were all different girls then. And then I got to do some illusions. So that's how that happened. And then after that show, Paul was going into the Prince of Wales Theatre in London for a season. And so we were all asked if we'd like to go and, well, no, I think the choreographer who was in London was different to the one for the summer show. So he came to see our show and he asked 2 of us if we'd like to go to the main audition in London for the London show. So
was this the show? Because I remember this. Was it called It's Magic or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Didn't it become like I think it still is the longest running magic show in theatre or in London ever, isn't it?
It was the longest running one-man show. And right. I think in the old days of Victorian times, there was a show called Masculine and Infant on Piccadilly. That was the longest running magic show because it ran for 43 years. It was I think they owned the theatre. It was the Egyptian Hall and it was resident. But certainly Paul's was the longest running one-man show. And oh gosh. So went into that show and became even more of an assistant there. But he was still saying to me, he occasionally took me out to dinner or an opening night or something. But he always had loads of other girlfriends as well. And he always just kept saying, no, you're far too young. And you'll run off with some young lad your own age. Go and find somebody your own age. So it was still, that went on for a very long time. And during that time, he'd got his TV show for the BBC. And I actually went and auditioned for the director and I didn't get it. So he did about 2 years of the TV shows. And then at the Prince of Wales Theatre, his producer came to see the show. And then he contacted my agent and said, would you like to join the next series of the TV show? So, everybody just thought I was Paul's girlfriend. That's how I got the job. It really wasn't, And
was it during the TV show, working together, that you really got it together, would you say?
No, no, he was a little devil. Oh, he was a devil. No, I had a couple of other boyfriends that time that made him very jealous. But, he had a girlfriend at that time, but still always let me know that he liked me. And would send me, birthday presents and things. And when we weren't, and after that, during the TV show, he would, ring me on the months we weren't working and maybe take me out for lunch or something like that. Or occasionally, take me to, banquets or the Water Rats Ball one year. So it was like that for a very long time until, and Paul, if he was alive now, he would disagree, Mark. But because I've always been an independent person, I then was becoming a really successful dancer and working with Dudley Squires, and I toured with ABBA and James Last and Christopher, in Europe. And I had a brand new car and I'd saved up and I'd bought my own flat. And he kept saying, can I help you pay for something? Can I buy you something for your flat? I'd say, no, it's mine. I've always been very like that. And I'd bought a bungalow that I rented out. And, I was 28. I was doing very well. So I think he suddenly realised if I don't get her now, I will lose her. And, and I had a very good-looking boyfriend at the time, so that was probably a pretty good thing to do. Who luckily I'm still friends with. But, no, and so then he actually had a girlfriend that was living with him. And so, he came and said, I really want us to get together. And I said, well, no way, you've got this girlfriend living with you, I'm not even going out to dinner with you. And, I'm a strong girl. There was no way I was going to give in. And anyway, I'd finished with my boyfriend and then he finished with this girl. And then he started, taking me out regularly. And then, we got engaged in the December of that year when I was 28, I think,
And it was an amazing partnership, both on stage and off stage. And people probably forget, but I remember watching him on telly, watching the show, watching you on telly. You were getting something like 15 million viewers for his magic show. And it was shown all over the world. It was global. It was such a big, well, you both were, but Paul particularly magic.
Yeah. It was sold to 43 countries, and we were top of the ratings, because in those days, of course, people can't imagine what it was like when you only had a few channels. But in those days, we only did have 4 and then 5. And it was top of the ratings for the Saturday night when the live new series went out. And they used to repeat the series from the year before on Monday or Tuesday nights, and it was top of the ratings on the Monday and Tuesday nights. And also, which I'm really proud of, was that it was the first show to knock Morecambe and Wise off the top of the list for the Christmas specials. You know, we won the Golden Rose of Montreux TV award. The BBC hadn't won it for 22 years. And I don't know that they've won the gold since. They've won the bronze and silver. I'd need to look that up. And it was quite funny. The year we won it, the Paul Daniels Magic Show won the gold. We were up against a Bette Midler special and various other American things that were huge. And Paul was also a puppet in, what was that funny puppet show? Why is the name gone from me now? Oh,
Spitting Image.
Spitting Image.
Yeah.
And so he was a puppet in Spitting Image, and they won the bronze. So he won twice that year. But, you know, it's quite funny because, you know, we didn't get to go to the awards thing in Geneva or wherever it was held. You know, the bosses at the BBC go to the big awards ceremony, and we got a phone call at home saying, yeah, we've picked it up.
You know what's interesting there? You're talking about you being a very independent person, always having that quality. And you are like that now. And I wonder if, because obviously you were together, great marriage and everything, and then Paul sadly died a few years ago. Do you think that quality, that independent quality, that strength that you've got, and I'm not saying for a second that you weren't devastated by losing Paul, because I know you were, and I know you still miss him tremendously, but do you think that independent streak in you and that strength in you has actually got you through that time?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Because I've always in life, and, you know, even being stuck in Iran at 19, not knowing if I could get out and whether we'd be blown up, I've always believed I can get out of a situation. I've always believed I'll get there. And I've dealt with a lot of challenges in my life, but I've always known will be a way out. You know, there will be a way through this hard time. And I've always been a person that's been, especially with losing Paul, is, you know, just thankful that you had them. How many people in their lives had the life I had, but the relationship I had with him, you know, was so special. So I just every day think, well, he got taken from me too soon, but I just feel he lived every day of his life as well. And we had this, you know, we made each other laugh every single day. We just did, you know. And even when we were cross with each other, we'd end up laughing, you know. And I sometimes would want to get really angry with him, and he'd be making me laugh. I'd be thinking, look, I want to shout at you. Stop it. You know, I mean, it's so, you know, I just, every day I miss him, but every day that's in my head. Is that, and look at how lucky I've been. I've done everything I've wanted to do in my life since he's died. I've done all this incredible work that's helped me through. And, you know, people have just been so amazing to me. And it's a very special feeling when your friends and the public make you feel loved. And if I had to describe what's happened to me since Paul died, is that people have let me know that they love me. And I don't mean that in a big-headed way.
No, I know you do, but I think also...
they've wrapped me up and looked after me.
But it's something to do with you as well, because the public are not stupid. You know, they see through that showbiz. Again, I think the public have seen something in you that they've really liked. Was there a time when you were together, because you were very much, it was Paul Daniels and Debbie McGee always during his time and when you were together, was there ever a time when you thought, I really want to just do something on my own, I want to sing or dance or be in a show and feature on my own?
No. When I was younger, lots of my friends kept saying, why don't you push yourself for other stuff? But, you know, I loved him so much, Mark. I didn't want to be away from him. You know, I just thought, I'm only here once, and he is older than me, so the chances were that he would die first. And I did loads of other work on my own. You know, I didn't just become that sidekick or just always working with Paul. You know, I had loads of other projects that I do, but you know, and sometimes it took us away from each other, but I always put my marriage first, always. And I just thought, in show business, you go away working for months on the road or whatever, it's so hard to keep a relationship together, that I just thought, no, he'd had a long time, he'd had 18 years on his own since his divorce, and I wanted him to have a proper home and, you know, not travel on his own. You know, he'd had enough of that. So, and I don't regret it for a minute. I did the right thing. You know, my life was so happy with him. And, you know, every challenge we faced together. And now, that was the hardest thing when he first died, was when things were happening that were challenging for me. I was so used to having just that sounding board. Do you think this is the right thing? Shall I do this? I didn't have it anymore. And I'd lost my dad 18 months before Paul, and he was the other person I'd sound off. So it was really hard for me, because suddenly I realised I am outside in this world on my own now, and I've got to make every decision. And I think that's the hardest thing about losing a partner that you're very close to is, yes, of course, the presence and then, but as life goes on and you have to carve this life on your own, it's all of that dealing with, you know, the electricity's gone, or, you know, just stupid things, but it's you're dealing with everything, which now I feel like, yeah, I can deal with it. You know, I'm coping really well.
We've got to talk about Strictly, obviously, because it was so fantastic.
Yeah.
You were fantastic on that show. You brought something to that show too. When the show started, did you watch it and think, please let me be on that? I want to be a part of that.
I'd always wanted to be on it. Oh yeah, absolutely. And Paul did it in 2010,
yeah.
And, you know, and I got more nervous for him than I did for myself when I did it. But no, I always wanted to be on it. Yeah. So it was a dream come true when I got offered it.
And everybody looks at it on the Saturday night and you think, wow, this amazing show, or the glamour, the music, the lights, the production values are so fantastic. I know a little taste of it. Remember when you were in the series and Blue Peter did a special for children in the I came into it for like 10 days. I only had one day in the studio. And what I remember was, it was stepping into this bubble. It was like everybody had taken a Strictly pill. The person who met you when the car pulled out, the person who brought you tea, opened the door for when everybody was so happy. But there was also, I felt, a tension, not for us because we were just there for a bit of fun, but on the Saturday when we recorded our piece, you were doing your live show that night. I don't know what stage of competition it was, but there was this tangible feeling of tension, of pressure. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, when I took it, I actually thought I would pick things up more easily than I did. It was much harder than I thought, not because of dance steps, and it was so different to any of the training I've ever had. And so it was like untraining to retrain. So my advantage was I was used to picking up choreography. I mean, I was always really quick at picking up, you know, and if anybody dropped out of anything, I always got the phone call because they knew I could learn it in 5 or 10 minutes and go on. But the difference was their technique is so hard, and you have to learn the technique because that's what the judges judge on. So if you end up in the dance-off, they are judging purely on technique. So you just can't learn something and make it look good. As we know, we can bluff it. You can't do that on Strictly. And it's so intense. And because everybody on that team wants you to be the best you can be. You know, from, as you say, the girl running and getting your cup of tea and a sandwich, to the cameraman, to everybody. So you also, a part of the nerves is you don't want to let anybody down, because they will be rooting for you. And your partner, you know, has been so unselfish and worked every hour there is to get you to the level you're at on that Saturday night, which is hours and hours of training.
And you wanted to dance with Giovanni right from the moment you saw him. It happened. That's incredible that you spot your potential partner and you think, please let it be him.
Yeah, it was what they do on the first day when you meet the pros. You're in a great big rehearsal room. They have the celebs, the male celebs go in a circle and the female celebs go in a circle. And then the female pros go on the outside of the circle and the male pros go on the outside of the celeb female circle. And you learn a waltz step and a salsa. And you do 4 steps with whoever's in front of you, and then they move on to the next girl. And so I say, start with Aliash, he went there, then there was Gorka, they do the 4 steps, then whoever, then Giovanni, and then, so you do a waltzy bit, and then you do the sexy salsa bit. Well, Giovanni, and I had seen him and thought, he's got some sort of sparkle. And then when, yeah, just a bit. And then when we did the circle, all I can explain it was that when he held me and we danced, it felt right. That it, you know, I danced well with the others. That all felt good, but with Giovanni, it just felt natural. It didn't feel awkward in any way, because, you know, when you first dance with somebody, it's a bit awkward. It just didn't. It just felt natural. We made each other laugh there and then, you know. So, yeah, so then you've got, but 2 weeks you have before you then find out who your partner is. So you're rehearsing the launch show big dance, and we had a tiny section together on the launch show dance, the opening number. And that just was it. We just sparkled together and we both felt it. You know, we just knew. And he kept coming and saying, you know, hi. He said, let me show you a step. He kept trying out a jive step and things. And I kept going, no, Giovanni, if I become your partner, then you can teach me. Because I was actually nervous. I thought, well, if I do it wrong, you know, I was feeling it.
Yeah.
But actually, but honestly, before the live show where they tell you who your partner was, I had about 3 nights where I just couldn't sleep, because I was thinking, if I don't get Giovanni, I'll get on with whoever it is. But I really want to dance with Giovanni. And what I didn't know is he really wanted to dance with me, because he'd watched us all and thought I could see what I could do with that girl. But he did admit to me that, you know, I didn't think I'd get through after maybe the 4th week. And at the very beginning, before we started dancing together, he didn't think I'd get through that far. And also because of my age and everything. So it came as a real shock, even our first day of rehearsals, of how quickly I picked it up and then what I could actually do. And it was the first day of rehearsals, and he said to me, it was a paso doble we were doing. He said, do you think, you know, because you've got 2 weeks rehearsal for the very first dance. He said, do you think if you did, you know, some stretching, do you think you'd get down in the splits in the 2 weeks before the opening number? And I said, well, I'll have a go, you know, as you do. So that's what I did. I couldn't get in the splits then, that first day. I was probably halfway down. I hadn't danced or anything for years. But I stretched for half an hour before we started rehearsing every single day. And by about the 4th day, I was about 3 inches off the floor. So then we knew that I'd be able to do it by the end of the next week.
It's that determination again. Now, since then, of course, you got to the final, you won the special, it just opened so many doors for you. And I remember 2 things, really. When I came to stay with you for a while, when I was doing a play and I came to stay with you, you just got back off the tour.
Yeah.
Done the city, and you were genuinely exhausted, weren't you? Do you remember you were sleeping a lot? You looked tired. You'd had a fantastic time. It had been amazing, but you were tired. You managed to cope with that, but also you managed to cope with the fact that everywhere we went, when we went out for breakfast or a cup of coffee or whatever, everybody knew you and knows you now, and you've never sort of put glasses on and a scarf on and hidden away. You've embraced that, and you embraced everything that the show brought you. So you were exhausted, but you were also incredibly famous. You couldn't go and hide away, could you?
No, I was completely burnt out at that time because I'd finished the series. Well, before the series, I'd actually filmed a programme called The Pilgrimage, where I walked the Camino Way with Neil Morrissey and Ed Byrne and a group of us. So that was a really tough job. We were walking like 25 miles a day or something like that. And then I'd only had a few weeks, started Strictly, finished the final of Strictly on the Saturday night, got back to the hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then left at 8 o'clock the next morning to go and open in Panto. And I did, and I'd been the last 2 weeks of Strictly, I'd been rehearsing Panto in York in the morning, and Giovanni came up and stayed and rehearsed with me in the afternoon. I rehearsed Panto in the evening, and then just come down for the Friday and Saturday nights for the studio days. So I opened in the Panto with hardly any rehearsal. And then I finished the Panto on the Sunday night, drove down to London, started rehearsals at 10 o'clock in the morning for the tour on the Monday morning. Did the tour, had 1 day off, flew to Dallas, filmed a thing for ITV, going horse riding at Southport Ranch and all of that. And then came back, and then you came to stay. And sometimes I woke up.
And people would ring you and say it was so funny because everybody was, and I'm sure they still are, dying to know that, is she going to be with somebody else? And suddenly I was staying there. And obviously we're just mates, obviously. But I remember there was one day when I'd been for a run and I was lying in your garden outside just doing stretches and stuff. And somebody phoned you and said, who's this bloke lying in your garden doing sit-ups?
Actually, the whole story of that, which I didn't know at the time, but since then I found out, is all my neighbours were phoning around each other to see if anybody knew who you were, because they'd seen your car there for a few nights.
Right. Oh, I love it. This we're doing these conversations, as you know, for performers, for actors, for performers, for theatre staff, for technicians, everybody, all those people who haven't been as successful as you've been, and at the moment they're really, really feeling it. It's a really hard time for them during this time when we're recording this. Looking back, has there ever been a time for you when you were in a real predicament, financially or emotionally or whatever, a really tough time?
I think at the very beginning, definitely, even after I bought my flat and everything, I worked a lot because I never sat at home. I went out, I drove agents mad because I'd go to class in the morning, get myself glammed up, and then all afternoon walk around all the London agents. Because my theory was that if they saw your face, if the phone rang, you were fresh in their mind. And that worked because I was very rarely out of work, but I wasn't earning fortunes and I was paying all my bills and things like that. So, but I've always been very good with money and I've always saved for a rainy day. So I didn't ever suffer where I couldn't afford to pay a bill or I couldn't afford food because I never spent what I earned. I've never, ever done that, not even now. And when I first started working with Paul, he told us this system of to always put 10% of your money away. This was his kind of lecture to the dancers. And people say, but I can't afford to do that. He said, everybody can afford to do that. You pretend to your mind that you've only earned 90% of it. Even if your grandmother gives you £1, put 10p in the bank, and that will compound and your interest. If you want to buy a car, you can use it, as a guarantee against a loan, but you've still got your capital. And I've done that, and I still do that. So, for me, we know how tough it is, but although I've had tough times, and Paul and I had a manager who was crooked that stole lots of money from us and then died and left us with debts we didn't know about. And we had about 3 years where we worked day and night to pay that debt off because otherwise we would have lost our house. And I think in later years, that's the toughest time I had. That was in the early 2000s. And I didn't buy any clothes. I went to the supermarket and bought cheap things, and but we paid it all off and then we built back up again, but I can't, my heart goes out to people who are now haven't, for no fault of their own, they haven't earned enough money to save. I work with a couple of actors at Christmas that I'm now actually extremely concerned about, because one of them's got a little girl, and I'm thinking, it's not just now, because for the first few months, most people can probably just about survive, but it's the length. How long is it going on for? And how it's, paying your bills, but how do you keep a roof over your head and feed your family? It's I've been involved with these food banks from when they first started a few years ago, and that's a wonderful thing, because people can go and make sure that their family is eating.
Yeah. A big question now is, what's next? What do you want to do? What would you like to do?
Well, all the work that I had planned for this year, apart from a Strictly cruise with Giovanni that I was going to do, that's gone, and I don't know whether that will ever come back. But the plays, and I was going to be in a musical as well, they've all been postponed. So my excitement for them is still there, because I'm just hoping that they'll happen maybe in 6 months' time. And, something to get my teeth into. But Mark, I'm a very positive person. I just always believe that what happens in life is meant to be. So I just think you have to work at it, so that you can't be lazy and just let life pass you by. But I just think it will take you down the avenue you're meant to go. And if you look at what's happened to me since Paul died, I could never have dreamt that at my age, all of this would happen to me. That's what I dreamt of doing when I was in my 20s, and I didn't, because I married Paul. But suddenly for me, it's like, who else at my age would be given all of this? That this is like me starting again when I was 20, but actually getting all the jobs I want. It's just fantastic. And so, that's where I'm going at the moment. It looks like I'm going to be doing some acting, darling, and, a little bit of singing, and just enjoying work and life and my friends.
Yeah. I've got something in the flat here that it's like a little star, and I've just picked it up in this junk shop somewhere, and it says, never give up believing that something wonderful is about to happen. And
that's honestly
great. I just saw it, and I've got it, and it absolutely sums up what you've been saying, really.
Yeah, I'm going to write that and put it up in my office. Yeah. I used to keep little quotes like that and stick them on Post-it notes around my computer, so that, when you have a moment of daydreaming, and I'd look at something and then go, all right, I'm getting back to work.
Exactly. Debbie, wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for having a conversation with me. I really hope everybody watching this has enjoyed it. Please don't forget to donate for Acting for Others, because that's why we've had this conversation today, and there will be more. But for now, thank you, and a big thank you to the fantastic Debbie McGee. See you soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching that conversation. If you've enjoyed it, please go to the Acting for Others website, which is actingforothers.co.uk, and hit the donate button, which will take you immediately to the Just Giving page. And please give as little or as much as you possibly can to help those performers and people in the industry who really need your help financially right now. Thanks a lot.